New York landlords are finally suing over the new state eviction moratorium. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have several interesting articles for you today, and they're all related to the same thing. It's the fact that New York landlords are sick and tired of all these eviction moratoriums, and they are finally suing in order to get compensated for all the losses that they've experienced throughout this whole thing. Okay, so they basically got completely screwed over by this new governor who, even though there was a Supreme Court ruling that destroyed the previous eviction moratorium, the state put in a new eviction moratorium that basically did the exact same thing and said the exact same thing as the old one and made almost no changes whatsoever. And so the articles that I'm going over today, they're talking about this problem right there. Okay, so before I get into those articles though, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of this new New York State eviction moratorium. Okay, what you would consider, do you consider it to be the same as the prior eviction moratorium, or do you think it's completely lawful now? Well, I'm already telling you what I think. I think it's unlawful, just like all eviction moratoriums are unlawful. So, the first article that I have for you today, it's coming from nydailynews.com, and it says, New York City's largest landlord group sues to block state eviction moratorium. The city's largest landlord organization asked a federal court Thursday to strike down Governor Hochul's statewide moratorium on evictions, potentially putting tens of thousands of New Yorkers at risk of homelessness as they struggle to pay rent because of the pandemic. The Rent Stabilization Association, RSA, which represents more than 25,000 New York landlords, filed papers in Manhattan federal court arguing Hochul's moratorium, which runs through January 15th, flies in the face of a recent Supreme Court ruling that invalidated a key component of a previous iteration of the state's eviction freeze. Now, let's see exactly what they say, the new moratorium, why it doesn't go, it isn't lawful. No matter the spin by state lawmakers and Governor Hochul, this is a re-implementation of the previous law, completely disregarding last month's U.S. Supreme Court decision, said Joseph Strasburg, RSA's president. On August 13th, the Supreme Court rescinded a provision of New York's first moratorium that afforded tenants eviction protections if they filed an economic hardship form. Instead, the top court ruled, tenants would have to prove economic hardship with evidence in court to enjoy protections. Hochul's moratorium was approved by the state legislature and took effect September 2nd, sought to address the Supreme Court decision by including a carve-out that allows landlords to challenge tenants' economic hardship declaration in court. So, landlords have to go out of their way and then challenge, the hardship declaration in court. Now, they didn't say that. The Supreme Court said the tenants have to prove that they are actually facing a hardship. Not that the landlord should have to be able to, go to court, hire lawyers, and be able to challenge it. No, the tenants need to prove that they are actually facing economic hardship in order to get these protections. But they didn't write that into the law. But RSA contended in its Thursday lawsuit that the tweak isn't enough to pass Supreme Court muster. The central structure and mechanism is still an unsworn hardship declaration in which the tenant merely checks a box without specifying what kind or type of hardship he or she claims and without providing any documentation of the hardship, the lawsuit says. Yeah, and I agree that is completely ridiculous. That flies in the face of the Supreme Court decision, okay? And that puts the onus of proving whether a tenant is facing hardship or not onto the landlord. Okay, that's completely ridiculous. Instead of reinstating a moratorium, the RSA says Hochul's administration should focus on streamlining the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which covers rent payments for tenants who are unable to make them because of COVID-19 related hardship. Yeah, and I also agree with that. Okay, so the big problem with the rental assistance programs, I've gone over it time and time again, is that the bureaucracy is slowing it down. And that is a great lead in into the second article I have for you today, right? And just to tell you how bad and how much of a mess, a bureaucratic mess that these rental assistance programs are up in New York State specifically, I have an article and it's coming from therealdeal.com, and it says rent relief checks go out for the wrong amount. Delays, glitches, and now payments off by thousands of dollars. Shouldn't surprise me that there are, complete screw ups in these rental relief programs, and especially in a place like New York where there's just tons and tons of bureaucracy. So this article, let's see what it says. Overpayments have been common for landlords in the Rent Stabilization Association, said Olga Someras, the group's general counsel, but the extra money has meant more problems. The state's Office of Temporary Disability Assistance, which oversees the program, sent checks to members in early August, then immediately phoned the recipients, asking them not to cash the overpayments and wait for a replacement. As of last week, I have not heard of them replacing the checks, said Someras. So they sent out checks with the wrong amount on it, overpayments to these landlords, and then when the landlords got the checks, they said, "Don't cash them, it's the wrong amount." So the landlords didn't cash them, and then they just were like, "Okay, well, go ahead and send us the correct amount." Here we are a month later, and landlords still have not received the correct amount on their checks. Okay, so that is a complete screw up by this agency that's supposed to be distributing the rental assistance. It's no wonder, and this is the same organization, by the way, that was commenting in this second article that is suing over that eviction moratorium. So, yeah, I mean, this is a complete ridiculous mess, okay? Oh, man. But going into the third article I have for you today, and it's coming from mytwintears.com, and it says local landlords join class action lawsuit on New York eviction moratorium. And that's what I'm talking about, okay? Everyone who has suffered any sort of loss from this needs to join into one of these class action lawsuits, okay? We have to make sure that we get compensated, that we shut these eviction moratoriums down, and that we get compensated for all of our losses caused by them, okay? Landlords and building owners say enough is enough when it comes to the eviction moratorium and the New York rental assistance program. A class action lawsuit by several state landlords challenges the Cuomo administration's moratorium, which did not allow property owners to question hardship claims made by their tenants. That's the article I just, went over how the hardship claims, the tenant could just, say they were facing hardship and didn't have to prove anything. The Supreme Court heard a similar case just a few weeks ago and sided with the landlords, saying it was unconstitutional. Now the Hochul-era moratorium extended those benefits, but gives more rights to landlords. They can challenge the hardship claims, and if the tenant made false claims, property owners can evict. Tenants were able to check a box basically saying, "I can't pay rent." There was nothing we could do as far as evictions were concerned, Michelle McClelland, a property manager with BGM Apartments, told 18 News. Since the Supreme Court decision came down before the landlords could go to court, Tuesday's decision was a simple one: revise the petition and refile. The Hochul administration promised several benefits to both landlords and tenants in the new eviction moratorium bill, which extends rent assistance through January 15th of next year. Landlords remain skeptical, though, as federal rent relief dollars are still waiting to be distributed. The burden of proof now lies with property managers, who must have evidence showing their tenants are falsely claiming benefits. And see, that's what the problem is, okay? Why does the landlord or the property manager have to find evidence that so we're supposed to hire private investigators to follow these tenants around and make sure they're not able to pay? We're supposed to call up their employers? No. The evidence should be on the tenant if they want these protections. And that is 100% the truth, okay? They shouldn't just get these protections for nothing. Okay. It is frustrating because I feel as though the responsibility has been put on us versus New York State, McClellan concluded. According to Albany, rent relief is on the way for those who qualified and applied, but landlords and tenants remain stuck in the middle. Yeah, and she says, how do I prove this person is working? How do I prove that the person has an illness that prevents them from being safe to look for other housing? McClellan added. And she's absolutely right. There's no way to prove it, okay? So basically, a tenant, all they have to do is check a little box. The landlord, unless they're going out of their way to prove that the tenant, is scamming the system, and it would take a lot to prove that, then the landlord has no recourse. So this law is garbage, okay? It needs to be thrown out just like the previous New York State eviction moratorium. The Supreme Court needs to destroy this thing. Landlords have to sue for damages. All this stuff has to happen. This has to go. This has to end. All these eviction moratoriums have to end. This is a completely ridiculous joke, and I'm sick of it.